I'm live. I'm reading Prelude to the Landing on Planet Earth. This is a book about a journey. It's published 1977. It's a journey with three people. We are here in the third chapter, A Change of Channels. And I continue from yesterday. The blended and balanced energies of Lyell's and Phyllis's etheric bodies could open and blend the energies of others, so that we can then use those beings to transmit healing through. The above paragraph condensed information that was elicited by questioning in the course of an unusually long communication. This was a key communication, not only because it divulged new information and plans, but also because it brought into focus certain biases of attitude towards the work, which were later to become both more prominent and more disruptive. Andrija's bias was towards obtaining the maximum possible information about the science, the technology, the way healing and channeling works, whereas John and Lyell were more interested in the overall program and purpose. We were trying to find out what the nature of the energy is, said Andrija. Is there any way of giving us a hint? Is there a true science of polarities? Could you give us an elementary exposition of that science? What would opening up mean to the person who was opened? What would they experience? What would they feel? What would their motivations be? Rhea tried to cope with his barrage of questions, but said, I have difficulty with this brain. And Lyell, becoming impatient, said, Andrija, I think we can get bogged down in details. John agreed and suggested they should proceed with a general overall plan and get back to the necessary details later. The doctor is unhappy, yes? Rhea observed, and Andrija replied, well, I would like to know what the science behind this is. This conflict of priorities between concern for knowing on the one hand and for being and doing on the other hand was to become more acute in their later work. When Rhea finally got round to outlining the tentative future program, Lyell was disconcerted rather than pleased by the offer of so prominent a role in it. Up to the present, he had been quite comfortable in his position as an objective observer. He had said that he was willing to participate in the work, but he had had in mind that his contribution should be as an interpreter or a reporter, and the invitation to take on a more involved role caught him off guard. I can well understand how he felt, having had a similar experience myself. The communication ended abruptly with Rhea saying, we have created, because of the force, a problem. We must completely disconnect. And suggesting that they might resume after half an hour rest, Phyllis came out of trance moaning and showing symptoms of intense physical pain. And when she regained normal consciousness, her expression was fearful. Her eyes darted about as if she was following the movements of objects or entities invisible to the others. It was some time before she spoke, but eventually she turned to Andrija and asked him, are you sure that we are dealing with the right people? She had felt threatened, she said, on coming out of trance by some creature with black masks. John felt that Andrija was less reassuring than he might have been, and he told Phyllis he was certain she had nothing to fear. But when the half hour had elapsed, Phyllis was reluctant to go into trance again, and she was only prevailing upon to do so some time later after she had smoked several cigarettes. Contact with Rhea was not re-established, however, so the communication that ensued was not a continuation, but a new beginning. It was the beginning, in fact, of a new stage in Phyllis's channeling, for it was now that Tom took over from Rhea as her control. I have worked with this being before. We have been in contact many years, said Tom, on his first appearance. John noticed that Phyllis's trance voice was changed. It was softer, more flowing, less mechanical and staccato. "Would you please announce so that all present here can hear your name?" Andrija said, and the reply came, "My name is not important, but I am known as Tom." The being, Tom said, believed that he was a spirit and had been allowed to think so, over the many years that he had worked with her. "Tom, where do you come from in this vast universe?" Andrija asked. "We come from beyond your knowledge of light," Tom answered. "We come from the zone that you would call cold." He was linked with Korean, as was Ria, but Ria was a computer, and the difference between himself and the being he represented and Ria was that we are with soul, explaining at Andrija's request what had happened in the last session. Tom said that Phyllis had feared that she perhaps was working with a computer and that she had had a negative reaction to the new system that was being tried out. "We were in error," he admitted, but the fault had also been with them, the participants. There were many negative vibrations that were then able to pull in other negative forces. It takes but one negative force to create the energy with which the negative can work. There were many negatives in this room. We had in this room the negativity of Dr. Sheely, who in his own fears of his past was creating a negative storm. We had with you, Doctor, the frustrations of trying to have clarification, which created another negative storm. We had with Dr. Watson the feeling that he was being threatened. This too created another negative storm. When negativity breeds, it creates a force like a hurricane or a tornado in your world. We terminated. This analysis of the underlying tensions and conflicts of the last session showed impressive insight, particularly with regard to Lyle, who had not at that time confessed to anyone his feeling of being threatened by the new role he had been invited to play. Tom went on to reassure him that he was not being put under any duress, but was simply being offered an opportunity to serve in a particular way. There would be other opportunities, other ways, if he chose not to accept the offered role. And Phyllis would find another working partner, for she was a catalyst in conjunction with many different male polarities. Lyle could take his time to reach a decision. Probably feeling rather left out and possibly a little piqued by the reference to the negativity of Dr. Sheely, Norman asked if he would have a part to play in the work. "It depends on where your commitment lies, sir," Tom told him. Norman said that his commitment was to open up the channels within medicine, but that he had to keep busy and making a living. Tom said that he could be involved in the work in a small way in that case, but his commitment should be to his work in medicine, for when this project is put into motion, there must be a total commitment, because there will be no energies for anything else. In the rest of the communication, and one held the following day, Tom went on to give fuller details of the nature of the project referred to, and the information he gave corresponded with and elaborated on that which they had already received from Korean through Bobby's channeling. The main purpose of all the work being done on Earth at the present time by various extraterrestrial groups in conjunction with human individuals and groups was to prepare mankind for the landing. It was their hope that by the time of their appearance 75% of the people would have been prepared for the event. "We speak only of what you call your civilized countries," Tom said. "The primitives will already know." Andrija, Phyllis and John were the nucleus of a group which would be given the fullest and most detailed information, for they had in Phyllis a unique channel for information transfer, and one of their functions would be to disseminate that information. At the extraterrestrial level, there were different units at work with different skills and special interests, and the work of these units was gradually being correlated. There was one unit, for instance, that was now working on the technology of interfering with television transmissions and projecting their own material onto television screens, as this was considered a good way of demonstrating their existence to a large number of people at once. The present group would continue to be involved in the area of healing, but it was important that they should always remember that they were the primary hub of a worldwide plan of organization established for the purpose of making the world aware of the existence of extraterrestrial civilizations and of their benevolent concern for the world, so that they should not be opposed when the time came for the landing. "We have the technology to help your people," Tom said. "It is very difficult for us to help them when we are being denied that we exist. And it's going to need our technology in order for them to survive. Need I say more?" The process of expanding human awareness had in fact already begun. On the 16th of October 1971, a new situation and a new era in Earth history had begun. Since then, Tom said, people, and you are aware of this, Dr. Watson, yourself included, have become more aware. Lyle replied that the date of October the 16th, 1971 was very relevant to him, for it was on that day that he had sat down to write his book, Supernature. It was also John's 34th birthday, and about a month after this date, Andrija had begun his research with Uri Geller. Work had been steadily progressing on several fronts since 1971, Tom said, but now the time had come for it to be accelerated. The worldwide emergence in the wake of Geller of children with paranormal powers was a sign of this acceleration, and there would be more such children whose powers would become manifest in various ways, for instance in an ability to put animals into a sleep-like calm condition just by touching them. Your world is becoming more open to the work that we have worked many thousands of years, many eons, to bring into focus. The we, in this context, included present human company. You have worked on many planets doing what you are doing now, Tom told them. Moreover, Bobby had been a part of their group in other incarnations. There had been a time when he had been instrumental in pulling the rest of the group through circumstances of crises caused by their own error. This time it was their turn to bring Bobby through, and they should continue to try, but should not be too distressed if they failed. In his past 5 lives on the planet Earth, Bobby had failed to accomplish what he needed to do, and if he failed again, he would have other opportunities. There was always a high failure rate with beings who had chosen to be in service while incarnated on the planet Earth, because of the physical nature of the planet and its seductions, and in fact only 2% of people who returned to serve actually entered upon a commitment. That had been the problem with the Earth for thousands of years. There was reason to hope, though, that, with a New Age consciousness developing, there would be many more who would commit themselves to the work that was necessary for survival, as the Doctor, the being, as Phyllis is referred to throughout the communications, and Sir John had committed themselves, and as Dr. Watson was now invited to do. It was clear that the session was drawing to a close, so John asked about future communications. The group would be leaving the Bahamas the following day and dispersing to various parts of the world, and he wondered whether it was possible for them to communicate individually, perhaps by using other channels. His question elicited another piece of unexpected information. You can make contact with us by going into a meditative state, being aware of your left ear and being aware of a force around it and an inspirational thought around it. At times we try to inspire you and to help you, and as many times I speak to all of you. You are confused and do not understand that it is our thought that we are transferring to you. Any time you need reassurance or feel depressed or feel you need contact, go into a meditative state and ask for us to come. We will impress through your left ear the answers you need to know. Every one of you has been wired in your left ear. I hope you speak in English, not in the Morse code or something, Andrija quipped. We go in peace. We send you love. We surround you with protection. We wish you to know we are always with you, said Tom when he finally took leave. It had been, they all agreed, when they were talking after Phyllis emerged from trance, a very impressive and fascinating communication. Indeed, the entire Bahamian trip, which had begun so unpromisingly, had turned into an experience none of them would easily forget. The following morning, they flew to Miami together and then dispersed. Phyllis and Andrija to return to their homes in Orlando and Ossining, Rob Norman to his clinic in Wisconsin, John to join Diana in Italy, and Lyle to take back with him to London, certainly the strangest and possibly the most important dilemma he had ever been confronted with in his life. Except for Norman, they all agreed to get together again in a month's time at Ossining, unless the management, as Phyllis now jokingly named their communicators, summoned them to a meeting earlier. I make a break here and continue this change of channel soon.